Whoa! That's the last time I shrunk myself to try to communicate with ants. Anyway, folks, greetings, ladies and gentlemen. I am the multi-voice reviewer. I have many voices, but one opinion. And welcome for today's another episode of Marvel-thon. Now, what exactly is in my list today? Oh, yeah. I already did Guardians of the Galaxy. I'll tell you that. And I'll tell you one thing. I still wish I have a PS4, because if I ever have a PS4, I could finally play this game. Because I would enjoy this game more than anything on the PS4. Probably along with the Mass Effect Andromeda. But, enough about the Guardians of the Galaxy. Let's talk about Ant-Man, shall we? Now, Ant-Man, that is something I haven't even read any comic books about, because I didn't think much on Ant-Man. Excuse me. I didn't think much on Ant-Man recently. I mean, one thing I heard, that in the story, there was a scientist who goes by the name of Dr. Henry or Hank Pym. Now, one thing I know about him is that he is one of the brilliant scientists. What he does is he created a suit. It makes him able to shrink into an ant size, and the helmet he wears helps him communicate with ants. Now, he gone through a lot of changes recently besides being Ant-Man. He kind of found himself a yellow suit he called it the Yellow Jacket, which, of course, in the movie, Yellow Jacket is a bad guy, and I'll tell you about that guy. And also has another suit where he can turn himself into a giant and calls himself Goliath. Based on a biblical story, huh? Yeah. And of course, one thing I know about Hank Pym is this. He has a wife who goes by the name of Janet Van Dyne. Or others will call her the Wasp. Now, one thing I know about her is that she can shrunk herself into an insect size, except she has wings, and also shoots these lasers out of her hands, so it creates quite a sting to the bad guys. Now, one thing is pretty interesting about the shrinking suit. What it does is that even though you shrunk into a microscopic size, you'll be 10 times as strong as your average strength. Wow, that's interesting. But of course, according to the movie here, in the movie, Hank Pym is played by Michael Douglas. And Janet is played by Michelle Pfeiffer's. Now, I used to have a huge crush on Michelle Pfeiffer's when I was a little kid. I mean, I had a crush on her when she played Catwoman. I just think her as Catwoman is so perfect. But now in this movie, Hank Pym and his wife Janet, as Ant-Man and Wasp, turns out that the Russians was about ready to launch a nuclear missile. So, Hank and Janet decided to go find the missile in order to stop it. But it turns out that it's welded shut. He can't go through the cracks. But Janet, she decided to go to the next level. She shrunk herself to microscopic size to destroy the machine. And she did it. But Hank Pym lost his wife in the process. She shrunk into the microverse, where everything in the world is all microscopic kind of world, and it's like some kind of an alternate world beyond ours. If we shrunk ourselves, we can go to this world. Of course, it's comic books, so anything is possible. And that's an interesting idea they took from there, because one thing I remember Hank Pym was, when he wore the Yellow Jacket suit, he gets really abusive to his wife, Janet. I mean, when she kept telling him to get the suit off, it's corrupting him, he's like, "You shut your face, witch!" And then he slaps her. So thank God they didn't stick with that idea in the story in the movie. Stick with Hank Pym, who lost his wife during one of the missions. And then he starts to realize that Stark and the members of S.H.I.E.L.D., they were taking his particles, the Pym particles, they call it. A little tiny, these chips, these little disc shape machines, if you toss it into anything, everything will shrink. And there's the other one where it can grow back to its normal size. Now, one thing I have to say that is pretty neat, that the helmet, he can communicate with ants. So he can pretty much control the ants at his whim. Now that's pretty neat. And he also has these carpenter ants, these winged ants, that he hops on their back and take them anywhere he has to go. But of course, back to the story, Hank Pym also has a daughter named Hope Pym. Now, as he showed up in front of Howard Stark, Tony Stark's father, and also Agent Carter, Peggy Carter, he showed them that the S.H.I.E.L.D. agent were planning to take his Hank particles, the Pym particles. And this one jerk from S.H.I.E.L.D. said, maybe if you were more careful about your wife, maybe this wouldn't have happened. And that was a big no-no. I mean, that is below the belt. He grabs him by the hair and ram his face to the desk. And as he stared at Stark, Stark was like, "Don't stare at me, you mentioned her. It was your fault." And I had a feeling that this guy is a real jerk, because I looked him up, he's going to join Hydra. He deserves that slam in the face. Anyway, Hank, he decided to quit. He decided to quit Stark Industry and quit S.H.I.E.L.D. And Stark says, "This is not exactly something that you can just walk away." And Hank was like, "Try me." Now, years later, he made his own lab and such. He became a CEO, and now he retired. And now he has a new guy named Darren Cross. Darren Cross. He becomes a new CEO, but it turns out that he is really evil, because right now he is really jealous of Hank Pym because Hank hasn't told him about his secret, his aunt secret and such. And now Cross is creating a brand new suit, a yellow jacket suit. It would revolutionize the military. And now he's trying to have some military buyers be interested in the suit. And even though Hank and his wife Hope, his daughter Hope, who is an executive assistant, tried to warn Cross about it, Cross is like, "I don't care. As long as I have buyers, this will sell." But I think he's getting a little bit not right up here. Now, they're thinking about trying to stop Cross, but his daughter Hope wants to use the suit in order to stop Cross, but Hank says no, because he knows what the suit will do, and he lost his wife, and he doesn't want to lose his daughter. I wouldn't blame him. If I lost a wife, I would have tried everything to protect my daughter. Don't want to lose another member of the family. So, what Hank Pym did, he tries to find a new person to take over. and he chooses an ex-con who goes by the name, well, his name is Scott Lang in the movie, but he's played by Paul Rudd. Can't believe I have one of these pictures. Must have been during my Halloween review. But Paul Rudd becomes a new Ant-Man. And one thing he's trying to do for Paul, I mean, his daughter Hope doesn't trust him because he's a criminal, but Hank trusts him because he has strong will. And besides, one thing about Scott Lang is this. He was an ex-con, spent his time in prison, and now he's finally released, and he's trying to do something new in his life. He tries to work at Baskin-Robbins, but there is an idiot, a moron, who keeps... He tries to order a hamburger, a pizza, something hot. It's Baskin-Robbins. They serve ice cream, you a-hole. Idiot. Actually, I wish I would have gone... I wish there is a Baskin-Robbins around here. I could go for a chocolate ice cream or a chocolate mousse or Rocky Road. Hey, I'm a sucker for ice cream, guys. Of course, one thing I like more, chocolate ice cream mixed with chocolate pudding. My favorite. Anyway, back to the story. The boss from Baskin-Robbins, he fired Paul Rudd. But some of his ex-con pals, they got him, they have a job for him. They say that there is a house owned by a brilliant scientist who has something top secret and very valuable hid inside of his old house. So Paul Rudd breaks into the house, and it turns out it was an ant suit. And after he tried on, he shrunk into a little ant and tried to get out of his room, out of his apartment. And now, noticing that this was a powerful shrunken suit, he decided to give it back to Hank Pym in his house, but it turns out Hope called the cops. And the cops got him in jail. One thing about Scott Lang, he has a daughter. Her name is Cassie. And he gone through a horrible divorce, and his wife was trying her best to keep her daughter away from Scott. And she's also dating this other guy who's a cop. He's trying to go easy on him, but, you know, being a cop, he has to abide the law. I have no problem with cops. Trust me. I have no problem. I just hate corrupt cops, or cops who kill or arrest autistic people for no reason. Anyway, back to the story. Now, even though he went into jail, it turns out Hank Pym was communicating him and telling him that he's going to get him out of jail. His aunt gave him the suit and tell him to put on the suit now, or else one of the cops are going to take him to prison. So he quickly put on the suit and made his escape. And now he starts teaching him how to communicate with ants. And he has 4 different ant species out there. There is the crazy ants, those little tiny electronic kind of ants. There are the fire ants. They're like human carpenters. I mean, they can build things and they can make bridge out of their own bodies and boats. And also the bullet ant. The ants, one bite from them is like getting shot. And of course, the carpenter ants, the ones with wings. He needs to learn to get along with these ants and try to use his best. And of course, Hope still doesn't trust Scott because he's a criminal, and she keeps on demanding that she wears a suit and do it. But Hank Pym just yelled out, "No!" And then they start telling Scott about the reason why he won't let his daughter do this. It's because his wife. And so Scott Lane decided to talk to Hope. and Hope, she starts teaching him how to fight. And one thing she had to confess, she really did call the cops on him, but she didn't know he had a daughter. So she starts helping him how to control the ants by using the emotion he has over his daughter, because he loves his daughter so much. So that became his key to help communicate with ants. So now they're ready to break in the Cross's lab and get the yellow jacket. And of course, Scott Lang has help from his ex-conboys, who decided to help them out. And of course, the ants are planning to put bombs inside of Cross's lab, so all of his hard work will be destroyed. And now that cop guy, he thinks that Scott is delusional, and he needs to be arrested. And of course, Hank Pym needs to be arrested too, because some stupid reason, I guess. But anyway, one thing about their blue van, it always has that stupid horn, that but anyway, they finally got to Cross, but it turns out that Cross imprisoned Scott Lang, and Scott needs to get out of there. So he finally got there, dealt with the goons, and you know, that former S.H.I.E.L.D. agent, the one that Hank bust his nose in the past, he should have finished him off when he had the chance. But Cross, he was pointing a gun right at Hank because he knew that Hank was planning to get into his lab, so he's twisted. And one thing that's really evil about Cross, one guy who disagrees with his invention, he turned him into slime. The heck? So now he puts on the yellow jacket, and it's become a one-on-one fight between Cross and Lang. And of course, there was this huge fight. Here comes Scott Lang and his army of ants, just going right at Cross. And a bunch of bullet ants tried to pin him down and all that. And of course, the whole fight with Thomas the Tank Engine toy. And of course, one thing I really did like, Hank Pym accidentally tossed one of the, I mean, not Hank Pym, Scott Lang accidentally tossed one of the Pym particles, and it hit one of his ants. So now this ant becomes a pet to Scott. You know, after seeing that movie, I like to have a pet ant. I mean, it'd be pretty cool to have a pet ant, have an ant for a pet. Anyway, after the whole battle, Scott has to do one thing in order to stop Cross. He has to shrink into microscopic size. And he almost got into the microverse, and he finally did destroy the bad guy. But now he's thinking that he's going to be lost in the microverse. So, he put another Pym particle in his suit, and then, bam, he came back. And everything went hunky-dory. Until after the credits, there's Winter Soldier, Falcon, and Captain America. And Falcon already met Scott Lang in the movie, hinting to the Captain America Civil War. And after the Captain America Civil War, now we get to the sequel of the movie, Ant-Man and Wasp. Where now, Ant-Man and Wasp, I mean, Scott Lang is under house arrest, and Hank Pym is helping him get out of the house arrest because he has his pet ant wearing the device in his ankle. And all he has to do is just sleep, eat, and go to the bathroom. That's it. And and of course, there is this one character from the comics that none of you never know. Now, he's played by this really good actor. This really good actor who is Korean, and he played a pretty awesome character. He played Jimmy Cho right here. He's a former FBI agent, but he forms a group called Agent of Atlas, a group of Asian American superheroes, which is going to be appearing on Marvel Phase 4, Shang-Chi. Now, Shang-Chi, I don't know much about him, but one thing I do know, he was one of the most popular kung fu characters. Let's see. Let me check the books. Yep, he's there, all right. Shang-Chi. One and only. Well, enough with this. Let's get back to the story, shall we? It turns out that Scott Lang is he's communicating with Janet, and they're trying to find some kind of a time portal where it's going to open to the microverse, so Hank Pym can go in there and find his wife Jan and get her out of there. But it turns out there's another character. Let's see if that character's in the book. Sadly, no, folks. Ghost and Bill Fisher is not in the book. It's an old edition, and I'm waiting for the new one to come out so they can add more. But anyway, one thing I know about Bill Fisher, played by Lawrence Fishburne and not Samuel L. Jackson. Yeah, I heard about that confusion joke. That old joke where somebody mistaked Samuel L. Jackson as Lawrence Fishburne. But anyway, Bill Fisher, he was once Hank Pym's friend who goes by the name of Goliath. And he had the Pym particles, but he didn't shrink, he turned big. But now, after the whole deal with Janet, let's just say they got into a disagreement and they stopped becoming friends. But Scott Lang talked to Fisher, and they were they were talking about how big they were. And also, there's this character called Ghost. Now, sadly, Ghost is not in the book, but one thing I do know, Ghost was actually supposed to be a guy. He was supposed to be an enemy who wears this suit. It makes him go through walls and punch people, but they cannot punch him. But now they changed it. They killed off the father character and they introduced the daughter. She's the daughter of Ghost. And it turns out that her father and mother, they were doing some sort of an experiment of some sort. But sadly, she didn't want to leave her father, so she ran towards his father, and that's when it all exploded. Her father and her mother died, but to her, she's been going through walls and kind of disappearing and appearing. But a problem is, the suit helps her walk to place, but now she's all grown up and it's killing her. So now she's using the Pym particles. I mean, she's trying to use the dimensional world in order to make herself solid. Great. We got another bad guy involved. And of course there is this character who's definitely not in the books. But of course I also heard about a character called Egghead. Oh, I see. Before he was Ghost, he was Egghead. Some kind of scientist who accidentally, he was a brilliant scientist until some sort of a mistake happened. It turned his head shaped like an egg before he became Ghost. Well, at least that's in the books. But anyway, there is this bad guy who keeps trying to take Pym's inventions, like his lab and everything, and sell them to the highest bidder in the black market. And now him and his goons are determined to get it. Seriously? The FBI, SHIELD, and the black market guy wants the stuff so he can sell it to the highest bidder? Come on! Anyway, they go through all this malarkey and all this stuff going on and all the fights, and Hope finally got herself into a wasp suit, and now they start working together and helping each other out. And of course, the original suit itself, it was hidden in his daughter's classroom inside of the small trophy. So, in the new suit he's wearing, it keeps malfunctioning. He changed into a little kid. And and Michael Douglas made some really funny kid jokes to him, saying like, "How is school?" And Scott was like, "Will you shut up?" And Michael Douglas was like, "Little cranky. I guess he should settle down with juice juice box and some string cheese. Oh man, I love that. anyway, anyway, almost at the end, he finally got big and scared the crap out of that black arm dealer and got the lab back. And as they finally got to the lab, Hank Pym, Michael Douglas, he finally went to the microverse and found his wife. And now they're going back to the reality world. And as they finally showed up, Janet, turns out, she has ever since she's in that microverse, it gave her a couple of superpowers, and he helped the girl be solid once again. So now she can no longer walk through walls anymore. Now, I heard in the MCU, they're planning to hint that microverse made her become a mutant somehow. I don't know. I mean, since I heard the MCU is planning to make their own X-Men. So, who knows? Who knows? But anyway, everybody just lived happily ever after until after the credits where Scott Lang went to the microverse. But here's the problem. Scott Lang, Janet, Hope, they all turn into dust because of this. Which I'm going to talk about on my Avengers review. Well, now that is my review of Ant-Man and Ant-Man and Wasp. So, for those of you who like my Ant-Man review, please leave a comment down below, hit like and subscribe for more. Now, what's in my next... I already did that. I already reviewed Doctor Strange. Awesome movie ever. Love it. Although I am planning to do a crossover review with another Whovian reviewer. Since he loved Doctor Strange, I'm talking him into do like a crossover stream review of Doctor Strange. But here's one thing I would say. I have seen this one movie, Dr. Morbius, a B-rated full moon entertainment movie. I saw the movie. It is really, really good. I mean, Jeffrey Combs as Dr. Morbius, he was really good. It's just too bad he didn't stick around to become Doctor Strange, but potato patata. Anyway, since I already did Doctor Strange, what else is next? Spider-Man. I'm sorry, folks, but I can't. I can't review Spider-Man. But, I mean, I'm going to have it reviewed, but I'm not going to review it. I'm going to have a good friend of mine who's going to review it. He goes by the name of J. Jonah Jameson, and I ask him as a favor for him to review Spider-Man. So you guys better stay tuned and get ready for J. Jonah Jameson to rip Spider-Man a new one. So, this is multi-voice reviewer, aka Michael A. Grimm, telling you all, later, dudes.